The paranormal is something that is somewhat controversial. It is truly up for debate for the existence of things that are beyond the normal abilities of our own beings. Between ghosts and poltergeists, people are just so skeptical of the paranormal. Maybe these tales will change your mind. So let us begin. Welcome to Freaky Faith's Frightening Five.
What did you do, little punk? Underneath the walls of bleeding.
Number 1. One Last Goodbye. This comes from a Reddit user by the name of SimpleSimon6262, who recalls an experience during a nursing job they had. According to the user, an elderly woman was transported to the hospital that the user was working at. As the family was notified, the woman was pronounced brain dead, and by the time the family arrived, the woman had no pulse for about 45 minutes. The family rushed and talked to the doctors about the woman's sudden death. However, according to the user, the woman sat up, calling for her family. The doctors rushed to the woman, trying to keep her alive for what it seemed to be a miracle. She said her final goodbyes after the doctors had rushed to the woman's side. A few months later, after her goodbyes were spoken, she was once again dead, at least being able to say goodbye to her family members.
Unknown guest. This story comes from a fan and friend. Zero was here. During the night, while Zero and his father began making dinner, something unsettling happened. The deep fryer turned on, beginning to boil, not being plugged in or even used recently. Before figuring out what possibly had happened, a strange occurrence once again happened. A shadowy figure crossed the hallway. Zero's dad's girlfriend, not being able to walk, could not be blamed as she had back surgery very recently. Still, they have no explanation as to how or why this happened, only that it was something that was quite terrifying at the time. Whether this had been a simple malfunction in the equipment and a trick of the eye or not, it certainly was surprising.
Number 3. The Light. This one comes from a family member of mine, but for the sake of avoiding confusion and omniscity, I refer to her as Jane. Jane's life had been not going so well, as she was at the time a teenager whose father had just left her family, leaving Jane, her mother, and her brother. Jane had always been religious and grew up in a religious household, but dealing with the recent leaving of her father, the stress turning her mother's hair gray, her chronic illness only growing, a recent breakup, all of it crashed on her, and she screamed out that she hated God and blamed him for her misfortunes. Almost immediately, a dark shadow appeared. At this point, Jane called for God to help her and that she was sorry for accusing him of being the reason that her life was so horrible. The shadow stood before a light appeared, casting the shadow out. She recalls birds in her house squawking loudly, her cats meowing, and even her own mother woke up at the noise. Whether this be something as simple as a dream or something bigger, this is no denying that it was scary for Jane to go through.
217. The Stanley Hotel is an infamous haunted hotel which inspired Stephen King's The Shining. This story comes from Stephen King's stay in room 217, according to most to be the most haunted room in the hotel. Stephen had experienced odd sensations and a disturbing dream. He had a nightmare of murdering his own children, screams. It was so terrifying to the writer that it inspired one of his most successful stories and one that everyone remembers. There have been many more experiences like King's from others who have stayed in room 217.
Number 5. My Own. This is a story of my own about an imaginary friend I had when I was younger. Her name was Granny. I remember her having a purple dress and long messy black hair. She also appeared to have no legs as she would hover, and her eyes were giant gaping black holes in her skull. I remember as a child that at one point my parents were trying out for a ghost hunting series and submitted a video they had done interviewing me at 7 years old as I told about Granny the ghost. They filmed through the night. Nothing happened except my bed had rocked back and forth ever so slightly, but I assumed that was due to my father shaking his knee or something of that sort. As we went into my parents' room to go over the final footage, I remember bringing up that my bed had shaked and that my father was mean for trying to scare me. He said he had no idea what I was talking about. No one can truly know if there is something more out there, but the experiences are things some people cannot explain. Maybe we will never know until the afterlife. If you believe in one, that is. Thank you for watching. I'd like to give a big shout out to CreepypastaEd, who was my guest on this collab. Thank you very much for collabing with me on this video. Go ahead and check out his channel. Link will be in the description down below. Go ahead and leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and go ahead and comment other experiences you know of, or even more ideas for the next Frightening 5. And of course, if you like content like this, go ahead and subscribe to me and CreepypastaEd. And as always, stay freaky, my little freaks. I'll see you later.